Tyranid artillery organisms. Welcome, gentle listener, I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and formations of the Warhammer 40K universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And today, we shall discuss a rather nasty element of the enemies of the Milky Way galaxy, for they cannot be dubbed anything but an existential threat to every single last race and faction within the setting. Only a few could actually ignore them, hiding in the webway if absolutely necessary. But were they to do this, then they would emerge later to find nothing but a blank slate, or worse, teeming multitudes of these horrors. Of course, I can only be speaking of the great devourer, the Tyranids. Now, before we get into the specifics of some of these beasts, I will be telling you a wee tale, so you can more easily compromise the terrible threat and debilitating terror they evoke in their victims. From the board library, Thin Blue Line. All we have to do is stand and fire. That's it. That's what they told us. Stand and fire. If you run, you die. And everyone on this world follows you to the grave. Just stand and fire. Just. I hate that word. Just. It makes everything after its use sound easy. Just stand. But they know nothing. I've done this before, you see, when we fought the Greenskins. Deployed on a world as flat as a pancake, we lined up and were told the exact same thing. Just stand and fire. And if we did this, then we would break the Orc flood. They will run, and we will sweep them from the cities, smash them on the plains, annihilate them in the mountains. We will hunt them down and exterminate the Xenos threat. Just stand and fire. And we did. When the ground bounced under our feet from the numbers of them charging us, their battle cries split the skies, hurt the ear to endure. They never stopped, shouting, charging. Thousands upon thousands of them poured into our sight, entire walls of them slain, so much they lost footing. They could not even get to us over the carpets of their own dead. And we continued firing as they kept coming, until they just stopped. Their lines shuddered. The shouting and screaming changed pitch, and instead of bellowing the names of their gods, their guttural screams became whimpers, and they ran. And the officers were right. We broke them again and again. Then we hunted them to extinction. But that was then, and this is now. So, I stand. And I prepare to fire. We are arranged in lines 4 deep, with firing benches for the ranks behind. We are a veritable wall of lasguns. Extra power packs handed out before the battle. We are prepared. We are ready. And the ground shakes again, as it did back then. But this time, the foe are not green, but purple and white. They too screech into the skies, but there are no words, no matter how garbled or simplistic. Theirs is a chittering that claws at the mind. We stand as they close the range. We prepare to fire. It is then that the horror begins in earnest. Micro suns come streaking from the bug horde and explode amongst our columns, melting men and women where they stand. I can see larger beasts amidst the rabble. These things hunch over and dig their front claws into the ground. From their backs protrude long cylinders, that belch out these balls of plasma. They sweep into us and burn entire ranks away, the men staggering and flailing as they're engulfed in plasmatic flames. Then barrages of things come from the skies, small black dots getting bigger as they arrive, falling in arcs again from their lines. We see them as they come down amongst us. These balls then explode, not in fire, but shards of armour-piercing death explode from some. Acid explodes from others, splashing all around them, burning people in a different way. Our lines, they evaporate, not just with the death, but from the confusion, the fear, the need to escape from the balls of fire, the horror of these frag attacks. And while all of this is going on, the nasty little ones are closing, charging at us, and we cannot stand. We cannot fire. And so, they hit us. And they consume us. They consume us all. Ah, the bugs. Now the issue with the Tyranids is not really their numbers, nor the individual strength of their monsters, what is commonly dubbed Nidzilla. No. These elements are well known to the Imperium and other denizens of the Milky Way galaxy, for they are common. The rampaging, never-ending hordes of the bugs are not really that dissimilar to the advent of a greenskin war. Pounding towards the lines of the Imperium or the Eldar forces before them, and knowing that if they hit, they will simply roll over whatever they come across. Only a line of fully trained, equipped and experienced elite troops, like the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, or the Astartes, the Space Marines, have the ability to stand toe-to-toe with these monsters and hold them back. Yet concentrated direct fire was always the way to break the spirit and thus the charge of the orcs. And from there, like most battles, the real casualties come from the follow-up on the rout. For the Eldar flyers and skimmers to hunt them down and gun them down in their droves, to cull them to near extinction, as the Eldar did for millions of years. Or for the forces of the Imperium to envelop and exterminate them with well-orchestrated overlapping fields of fire, often from large ordnance. The power of larger beasts was always smashed with concentrated fire from ranks of tanks, artillery, or even orbital bombardment, should the Navy be present and willing to unleash their planet-shattering firepower on behalf of the ground pounders. Yet, with the bugs, this is no longer possible. For they have adapted to near every tactic and approach used by the galactic armies, where they once charged into battle at the head of 1 billion throwaway forces, overwhelming their enemies by sheer numbers alone. Now, the bugs have been forced to adapt. Not that this was not always their plan. And every last race they eat, each new strain of genetics they absorb and integrate, makes them stronger. But it is not just in the almost limitless power of the gene and evolution that makes them so unstoppable, for they also develop their very strategies and tactics also. And it is in this adaptability that the greatest threat to the galaxy resides. For now, they have armoured monstrosities that guard their most important leader synaptic beasts, nearly proof from all handheld weapons due to their emulation of the black carapace of the Space Marines. They have developed terrifyingly potent psychers, presumably from the absorption of the rare Eldar genetics. But these are mere toys and trinkets compared to their predominance to alter their very way of making war. For each of the High Fleets has their own penchant for battle, yet these tactics have developed every bit as much as their genetic strength. Now the Tyranids fight as combined arms forces, using the perfect cracker to near every nut they find. They have all of the tools required, and are now applying them to deadly effect. Be it a larger faction of the galaxy, or a rare and barely known Xenos empire that finds some way to stop them, then the devourer simply changes their approach. With a seemingly infinite force at their command, What does it matter if the first dozen assaults on a target fail? As they did with Craftworld Eandon, the bugs will keep coming until they are victorious. Then they simply absorb the potence of those who finally succumb to their prowess, making them genetically, tactically, and strategically stronger with each and every morsel they consume. It is no surprise at all that the modern Tyranid forces met by the residents of the galaxy are replete with heavy firepower of their own. From the horrors of the heavy Tyrannofex, able to fire the deadly ruptured cannon, to the Barbgaunts that constantly harry the enemy line with massed fire, there is true versatility in their weapons as well. So let us go through them. Now the Tyrannofex is a huge blaster bug with a frame even larger than a Carnifex. It is more close to the Tervigan in its dimensions and resilience, and this means it can take quite a bit of punishment before it gives up the ghost and stops its relentless firing. The Tyrannofex's weapon, the rupture cannon, fires two separate forms of shot at the same time. The first is a ball that is actually a tick-like form that bursts on impact, covering the target in goo. It is the second ball that hits just milliseconds later that is ultra-dense and usually punches through near any armor. But as it impacts, the second shot is covered in the goo from the first, which then activates and eats through the hardened shell of the second round, which then explodes with excessive damage done to all around it. Somewhat like a bolter shell, it is clear that these weapons have been developed from their battles with the Imperium. The Exocrine is another heavy weapon beast, approximately the size of a Haruspex, so another whopper that will take responding heavy weapons to remove. But this one fires a simpler weapon. Though it is slightly less devastating, it is more versatile. The Exocrine can fire a long-range plasma ball, a burning star that sails through the air and lands amidst the enemy, melting anything within its splash zone. Often able to outrange the heavy firepower of the Imperial Guard, it is a nasty bugger indeed. But this is not all. The Exocrine can also creep into mid-range, and then target smaller vehicles, elite forces or fortifications, and then annihilate them with more directed multiple shots streams of plasma. Nasty. What was once considered a rarity, it is the Biovore. They are mid-ranked beasts, not as large as a Carnifex, but dwarfing a Tyranid warrior. They fire an incredibly cunning and dangerous weapon that even Mork would enjoy. For these beings are able to create living weapons inside themselves, as are all blaster bugs of course, but these ones are far nastier. Dubbed spore mines by the humans, they are explosives that burst in the middle of the enemy ranks like flechette or fragmentary weapons. They discharge chitinous shards on explosion. But they can also throw out acid or poison just as readily, and this can make fighting them a horror, as it will alter the entire terrain. Pools of acid on the ground, or poison in the air, they are an infantryman's nightmare. But this is not all. For the small mines are semi-sentient, and can choose not to explode immediately. So they will wait until they sense the presence of any non-Tyranid life forms. Hence, they can create entire regions akin to minefields. Alas, many a biologist believes that this beast is indicative of orcoid genes in play. Similar to the Biovore, there are the Pyrovores. Just think of a flame-throwing tank, and there you have them. A calamity to densely packed soldiery, they are also a deterrent to being shot as well, for if they do die, it is often in a conflagration, an explosion of burning stomach acids. Alas, this may well be good while they are closer to their own lines, guaranteeing collateral damage. Yet if they are close to your lines, then slaying the felled beast is as much a danger to your own men as it is to theirs. The Hive Guard are another form that can cause absolute confusion in any army the bugs fight against. Why? Because they have the Impaler Cannon, a weapon that fires bone-like shards as tall as a man, near as wide. Yet the true nastiness is in the fact that these weapons have beings inside them that guide the firepower to its target. When it comes to the Impaler cannon, there is nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. The Hive Guard themselves are large infantry war beasts that would dwarf a Terminator, and they have the armor to make slaying them a real challenge as well. Now, with the Tyranids' latest bioforms comes the Barbgaunt, the size of a normal gaunt, but they hide amongst the horde until they are just about to hit their enemy. Then they unleash massive gouts of firepower into the front ranks just before the swarm hits, tearing them to pieces and disrupting formations just when they need to be solid to repulse the Tyranid melee monsters. Now, all of these artillery organisms are designed to complement the onslaught, but it is now true that the Tyranids can deal just as effectively against a superior close-quarter army, as they can simply stand back and blast their opponents to sludge. And with all of these details, all I can say is, good luck with that, Reboot. My best advice to the Lord Commander is to swallow his pride. Smash all who stand against him, as he should then reach out to not only more Eldar, but also to draw up agreements with the Tau and even the Greenskins. And, without doubt, his highest priority should be to request parley with the first and the last, the Silent King himself. For if the galactic powers do not come together soon, there won't be a galaxy for them to fight over. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider liking and subscribing. And thank you for your precious time. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.